Alright, this is the continuation of the last video with regards to what type of frame will you pick. Last one was Vauban, this one is Volt, and I'm just going to show his abilities, and you could decide if this is the type of Warframe for you. Now, I will say one thing. This is a range-based Warframe, this is a strength-based Warframe, and this is a duration-based Warframe. The most you would want from this Warframe is duration and range. Strength only becomes a factor with regards to his second ability and some of his, I would say some of his fourth ability was mostly for his second ability to increase the multiplier and reload speed. Now, it's just for him, not for everyone else. So that's why I would say this is not so much a strength-based Warframe. This is more like a range and duration-based Warframe. You could build this Warframe for duration without a lot of range in order for his powers to stay on for a longer period, or you could build this Warframe for a lot of range without a lot of duration and have enough energy and efficiency to keep turning it on over and over again, but to make the Warframe more tanky. That's what not having a lot of range is all about, to make a more tank Warframe rather than a Warframe that could do damage in a large range. This is mostly meant for his survival or the survival of others. So this is a helpful Warframe. It's specifically designed to assist crowd control, and it also is designed to assist itself. It's mostly a crowd control Warframe to assist fellow Tennos more than anything else, specifically for his two very important abilities, which is his second and his third. And I would say because of this would have been because he has two very useful abilities and two very not so useful abilities. This C-based Warframe would have stayed at a B. However, because this Warframe is very helpful with his second and his third in helping other Warframe, especially when it comes to bosses, he's one of the few I would say he's one of the few boss killer Warframes, specifically because of his third ability. Now I'll show it right here. It basically what it does is stacks over time, and when you put it outwards as a shield, the shields they stack on top of each other. I believe you can cast a total of 4 shields stacked on top of each other, and what it does is you could shoot through the shields towards the enemy, and the damage it does extra damage over time to the enemy that once you shoot through the shields. So it's not just when you're using the shields to protect from people getting damage, from you getting damage. If an enemy runs into the shields, they get an extra 50% damage. Or if you shoot through the shields towards an enemy, that stack of shields, the damage that go through those shields is multiplied over time. It doesn't necessarily say it here, but if you look at the tips with regards to this Warframe, it would say cast shields cover a distance quickly, rapid build damage for Volt. It's a build damage passive. So all the abilities for this Warframe is stated here, but I'm just going to say it specifically. Third ability is very good. Second ability is very good. I would say first ability is not so good, and fourth ability comes in as a medium, as in it works when it needs to work, and sometimes it doesn't work. It's very helpful in certain missions, but in other missions it's not so helpful. It assists you or assist your fellow Warframes for their survival more than anything, for like a full 9 to 10 seconds, which is very helpful. But it does take a lot of energy just to do it every 9 to 10 seconds. So in considering doing your fourth ability, it's not really worth doing it all the time unless your build is designed for getting enough energy over time to cast it multiple times. Your main bread and butter is your second and your third ability, and I'll use it right now in order to show how it works in combat. So here's what they are. What each of them, I'll just show what each of them does, and you'll see how it works over time in combat. Remember, the red indicator means that you're either low in range or low in health. Red means that it's not good. But since this is a Warframe that I'm building for range and not for duration or efficiency, I'm not paying attention to any of that stuff, because this is simply to assist in a certain type of build towards other Warframes, which is to help them in fighting enemies in a large range area. That's why this is a range build. So I'll show the abilities again and then keep it quiet.
Let's go on the offensive.
The enemy are using a void key and a portable torsion beam device to force open the portal, destroy the key and the device. The portal only allows travel in one direction. Start up the portal generators to reverse the polarity.
As first ability, as shock stun, first ability. Second ability, just increase speed.
We have to win this.
Move faster. If the effect of another Warframe speed is on him, it will double his speed over time.
There's the torsion beam device, but they've taken the void key. Find it.
Now the great part about Volt is that even if your strength of your duration, even if your strength is low,
Quick, pick up the key.
let's say his strength is low, which it is because I have long range.
You got the key. Now get back to the portal.
By using your second ability, you multiply your speed over time, which means you can increase your speed without worrying about needing strength in order to make yourself fast. That's the great part about his second ability. You do it once, you do
Go
it
through the
twice,
portal now. It's about to collapse.
you do it 3 times. Once, twice, 3. It multiplies the speed over time.
Come on.
Objective complete. The void key and torsion beam device are out of commission. The enemy will not be returning anytime soon. Tenno, there are still undiscovered supply
Now,
caches in the area.
The,
You may want to
the third
locate
one
them
is
before
an
you leave.
interesting one. The third one is a very interesting one because, as I said before, a damage can be multiplied over time. Just like the second ability, you multiply it over time, casting it multiple times. Same applies to the third ability. If you layer his shields over and over and over each other, layer them on top of each other, and you shoot through the shields after they're layered on top of each other, the damages increase. Damage for one shield is increased when you shoot through it. Add another shield on top of that one, the damage goes through the second shield and the first shield. Layer a third shield, the damage goes through the first shield, second shield, third shield. Layer another one, the fourth one, on top of the first, second, and the third. The damage goes through the first, second, third, and the fourth shield. And that's how his third ability works. The fourth ability is self-explanatory. It's just a crowd control ability, so I don't really need to do that one. But this is why he's considered a boss killer. Simply because he multiplies up his speed and his reload speed, and he puts down 4 of his shields layered on top of each other. After he layered his shields, all 4 of them on top of each other, he does his second ability once, twice, 3 times, depending on how much energy he has, to increase his reload speed and his firing rate. So as he's firing through his shields, of his 4 stack shields, and damage is increased per each shield, he's also increasing his firing rate for his second ability through the shield, so he's firing even more bullets towards the enemy over time, which means they're taking even more damage over time. due to his second abilities and his reload speed in order to fire even more through his second abilities through those shields. That's why he's considered a boss killer, because he could kill bosses faster than other Warframes simply because he has stackable shields and a reload speed and firing rate for his weapons that other Warframes do not have. Wisp has the ability to increase her speed. And very few Gauss also have the ability to increase his speed, but he has and same as Zephyr have the ability to increase their speed, but none of them have like a stackable shields, so they cannot stack their damage over time through that shields, which is incredibly good, especially if you have a high damage weapon and you're firing a high damage weapon through the shields. That damage, extra damage is going towards the enemy, stacked over 4 times with multiplication of one's speed and one's firing rate is incredible. And that's why this Warframe would have been an A tier Warframe, starting from C going to B, and then they reworked him, and then he went from like a B level to A, but then they reworked him again, and he's now able to do massive amount of damage to like high tier bosses over time. The only thing I would say is because he's such a he's not a squishy Warframe, but he has base standard type Warframe. If he does not have his shield up in front of him over time, he will take damage, because even though the shield can't absorb a massive amount of damage, the enemy are firing towards him, it cannot absorb complete 100% of all damage. You can only protect him and resist damage over time towards him, like 50% extra damage. It's not just 50% damage towards one enemies. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how much damage it can resist. Maybe it could resist a full 100 damage, but seeing the fact if an enemy is using a firing weapon that's going really fast, he can't 100% resist damage for every single bullet over time. So that's something that you can only do, I believe, if he increases ability strength, or maybe the base standard is that it will always be at 50 regardless of ability strength. So let's see if I do this, increase his power strength. Yeah, his extra damage for his shields still stay. That's why I say this Warframe is third ability for his shields. It's if you're going for a survival build, any type of survival build, it really won't matter to have power strength if you're going for long survival in a mission, because it's not really necessary and it's not needed whatsoever at all for him to survive a long duration mission with power strength. It's actually pointless. So in long survival, what you would typically do is you would build for a duration and not a lot of range. You wouldn't build for less range like this. You would build for either the standard 50% range or 100% range, but not something like this. You either have it at 100 completely or have it at 50%, and then you have your duration more than anything, and you have a stack shields on top of each other, because once your shields are stacked on top of each other, the time period for them to wear off, because stack shield doesn't only mean stack shields with regards to you shooting bullet through them to damage enemy, it also means stack shields of damage absorption stacked on top of each other for you not to take damage because they're stacked on top of each other. So you have to be long enough and wide enough to fully protect your body from left and right. So you need to box yourself in a corner where the bullets cannot go around and do damage, or set one shield to the left and to the right, and left and right again, and have it form in more than a 180 arc around you, stacked on top of each other. That way you have two to the left and two to the right, stacked in front of you, but curve in a way that they're all around you, so you don't take damage from behind because there's nothing behind you. So that's how you work with survival for this Warframe. Moving on from this Warframe, go to the next Warframe, and this is Varuna. I won't speak too much on her because I hardly use her. but she's a melee based Warframe. She's not really a gunner type Warframe. She's standard. She's a wolf Warframe, and you build her for melee. Her sole purpose is to do a lot of melee damage, and she's kind of a combination of what I would say is Loki meets uh, Loki meets Garuda. He's kind of a combination of She's kind of a combination of Loki and Garuda in one. So you would build this Warframe for duration and not so much range, but you don't want to have too less range because you need to have the effect. This is a single layered, single type Warframe, which means it fights in one direction type of way, and it's not really helpful for many Warframes. It's more like I'm doing my own thing rather than I'm supposed to help everyone. It helps other Warframes by helping itself or by killing a lot. So its sole purpose is to kill individual enemies and thus keeping everyone alive in that regards. I would say this is a B tier Warframe, and I'll show what this Warframe does. I'm just going to use this base build I have for this Warframe, since since range isn't really a big thing about this Warframe, it's more about duration. And I'll show its duration and its setup based on this, and then I'll use it in mission and show how each ability works. So if you're interested in using a Warframe where you're doing mostly melee damage and mostly doing your own thing, you're not really worrying about supporting people a lot. You believe more in your own individual survival first and then helping others thereafter. You help others by killing for them. In other words, you stealth kill enemies, and that's how you help others. So she's very much like a Garuda and Loki, because they do kind of the same thing. So I'll just show all the ability first and move forward. Another thing about this Warframe, is a very particular Warframe. This Warframe is based on, as you can see, for all the abilities I just showed them, they all have the tap and hold ability. It says so on the top and at the bottom. One says tap, one says hold. So the reason why this is like a B plus level Warframe is because all of her abilities follow that motif. And if all of her abilities follow that motif, it's very irritating to want to, it's like this character or this Warframe is telling you you can only use and hold one button, one power button, in order to do that thing. But if you're using a controller, if you're using the center D-pad, it will always suck because it will never do what you want to do. So the way around it, if you're going to be using a PlayStation controller, you would then have to, and I'm going to do it right now, you would then have to, and you could do this for any Warframe that has the hold and tap ability. You would take each one of these buttons here, or you would take each one of the top buttons here and use it. I suggest use these buttons to represent using the powers, because only using a button and not a center D-pad works. I wouldn't mess with this button, but you could easily use the top buttons or you could use these buttons. I recommend using these buttons because typically by standard your firing and aim button is always your top button, so on and so forth. the best solution for this situation, this Warframe, which is very picky. It's very much like, um, uh, not like Vauban, but very much like, what was his name, Labos. Yeah, I would use the same method I use with Labos. Use the up, down, left, right. The same button, the same ones I use for here, 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 and here. It's the same you use here. So the up would represented by here, the D. The A will be represented by left here. The C will be represented by this button, so on and so forth. And the down one will be represented by B. That way you could tap and you could hold, and you never have to worry about anything. The only difficult part is now you have to remember to always use this to cast powers, which means whatever you have here is now going to be in your center D-pad of touchpad powers. So you can never use your center touchpad unless it's for specific things, such as running, um, place marker, gear wheels, and focus. So you will have to know specifically the way you have to set certain things for this Warframe. And for a lot of people, that would just piss them off, and that in and of itself would upset them to a certain degree. But if, let's say, this is your first Warframe that you actually want to be interested in doing, so it wouldn't upset you at all, because other than the base Warframes that you're supposed to select at the beginning of the game, doing this once and only once will be no big deal. So I'll try it out right now and I'll show it. I'll switch them off. So now everything is set. So all I have to remember now, since I don't really care about the gear wheel, since I don't really, the only thing I have to really remember more than anything is the focus and the sprint. And as long as I remember the focus and the sprint, I should be fine. Now everything is fine. So as long as I have my sprint on in advance, I never have to worry about taking it off. But let's say I do take it off. There it is. Now turn it on, turn it off. Center D-pad. Transference. No big deal. So all you got to do is remember that. I don't really like the yellow, the whole yellow thing that she has on. So I'll switch to a different outfit. I'll go with this. I think this is a one-for-all's outfit. Or was it all for one? No. All for one is all abilities into for one person. That's one for all. Yeah. I believe it's one for all. Yep. I used to be really into My Hero Academia, but you know, after season 3, I'd be like, something about season 3 that didn't feel right. I like the bad guy in season 3. He was pretty damn good. But I don't know. The bad guys were very interesting in season 3, but the overall story didn't feel interesting at all. I like the powers though. The powers and bad guys in My Hero Academia season 3 is
more
good.
Powerful than before. Only with true mastery of the Tenno arsenal will you succeed.
Maybe it just dragged. No, actually, now I think about it, season 3 was pretty good. Todoroki's story attached to his father. It's pretty good. But it just felt like it was dragging.
Don't let your weapons cool down. Lots more fighting to do.
See that? I was just about to use the center D-pad. Okay, so A ability is left. B ability is down. The effect goes on to him.
Come on.
And as long as I'm using a melee weapon, I won't lose my invisibility. Oh, never mind. Wait, I think I remember. I'm now gonna hold. I'm gonna hold down on the second ability to let my little companion come out. Rather than me just casting the ability, he comes out. The duration of the second ability lasts for a very long time, but you lose invisibility.
Let's go.
You lose invisibility the moment you do an attack. So let's switch back to weapon. So this, a lot of people don't like it about this Warframe.
Let's
that
go on the offensive.
the moment he uses his weapons, it loses that capability. It's not very good. Hold down the second ability, so I resist status. Turn on Firth. As you can see, she could kill anything pretty damn quick. All because resistance to status, which is by holding it down. And of course the fourth ability, which is damage per second, 1000 damage per second. That's a lot of damage per second that you're doing. Great part about it is not drain of energy per second. It's just you have to cast the ability over and over again. She's only considered like a boss killer to a certain degree, simply because of her fourth ability in conjunction with either her second or her third. And you know, I would say mostly her third and her fourth in combination with each other. But I always use her second in combination with her fourth, simply because if a status effect from an enemy weapon is cast upon me, like say a stalker or an acolyte or an enemy who has health draining stuff, you would need this on the whole time. Don't get me wrong, this Warframe is pretty badass. The fact that you can combine something that Loki and Garuda has and then apply status effect on top of that, it's pretty awesome. But the fact that her ability comes off the moment she uses her and her primary, secondary, or melee weapon is always annoying, in my opinion. And you have to be dependent on her powers in order to do something. It's not my cup of tea.
Thus we will counter.
See what I mean? You have to constantly turn on and turn off her abilities in order to move around, because the fourth ability lock you into this like state. And when she's doing that fourth ability, the enemy knows that she's there, so she's taking damage over time.
That was fun.
That's the annoying thing about her powers. Might be able to make it to just one more Warframe, but I might have to call it quits here because I have no interest in spending any more time with this Warframe. Anywhere from a B plus to about an A minus to about an A, and if you're able to give her duration and strength, you could get her to about A plus. But I don't think this is a Warframe that would be considered in the S tier whatsoever at all. The simple fact that her fourth ability, her ability turns off every time she does an attack. It takes her out of being invisible, is always an annoyance. So at best, to me, this Warframe is an A minus. I would say she belongs in like the B tier of Warframes. Her fourth and her second abilities are extremely good, but she really doesn't work out well.